Welcome to another episode of the Afterlife podcast. My guest today is Kevin White. Kevin is a transformational executive coach with Belief Crew, specializing in being a trusted advisor for entrepreneurs that are receiving their calling. Through his own journey from overcoming addiction to revitalizing his 20 plus year marriage, Kevin brings a unique understanding of the power of discovering your spiritual gifts and understanding what is sacred about ourselves. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Well, thank you. That was a beautiful introduction. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So, Kevin, could you just walk us a little bit through how you got to where you are with transformational coaching?
Well, I was one of those people that really needed it myself, and I don't know how many of your audience, maybe I should ask this before, but like do human design, but I'm a generator 1-3. So what that means is that I'm very a lot of my growth process is inner reflection, digging in and understanding more about myself. So in my kind of act one of my life, I was a IT tech person specializing mostly in databases, and so that that was very good as far as helping, like in my strength zone, as far as like getting certifications, learning all of that. It was aligned with me, and at the same time, I wasn't connected um, and connecting to my family the way that I could. And so I don't necessarily think like it was a bad part of my life, but I think there was more like the growth process I've had since leaving IT and since recognizing I'm a coach and that I help people heal has been way more aligned with my spiritual gifts and more acknowledging my spiritual gifts. And so I think what I've learned is that there's trauma in not knowing who we are and not knowing what our gifts are. And we don't often recognize that. And we're coping in life then, right? Like in ways that we don't recognize because it doesn't look like an addiction. It just is, but yet it's similar in any time we're coping, right? We're addicted to other things like to a community or to um, a certain pastime or whatever to fill our time. And not that those are bad things, but if they're coping from a place of not exercising and being exercised in our gifts, we might be exploring that without realizing that we're doing that. So I don't know if I fully answer your question, but I needed the work. I was in this place of heaviness and not connecting, and certainly affecting my wife, who didn't deserve that. And so I started with a coach and a healer, not because I thought or knew that that would be important, but I just happened to have a mentor that and someone that helped me on the healing side, and then ended up meeting a coach through my wife that became my coach as well. And so I had those two mentors and influences early on, and that became part of our journey and my journey, where really the other people that recognize and are in their spiritual gifts are such a huge force for us to help us choose that and to recognize what our gifts are. Um, the more people we're around that get that, the more we understand that part of us. We certainly wouldn't want to let go of the physical part of life, the joy of having a job, any of that, if that's your calling. But like it's an and, right? Like you have life, and when you add more spiritual awareness, it only becomes better.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. You touched upon something very important, Kevin, because when people think of addiction, right, we think of alcohol, we think of drugs. We don't realize that a lot of the coping things that we do to cope, we're just trying to escape. Uh, and
Yes.
that
Yeah.
absolutely, and I know I've done that in my life where I did not want to do the inner work, and my coping would be like doom scrolling or distracting
Yep.
myself with other things. So, this is very important that we get in touch with our inner selves. I know that people that are listening and watching, we share stories of near-death experiences, of afterlife. And, one of the things that everyone comes back with is how sacred we are. And it's like we've
Hmm.
forgotten that. So, do you think it's fair to say then that some of this work of transformation is like we're rediscovering?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I think it's possible that our soul our soul path is discovering ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Like think about how we're so divinely complicated and beautiful that it takes, I don't know, like let's just say it's 100 lifetimes to figure that out. I have no idea how many, right? Like it's ongoing. Um, and you think about how much you learn in one life. Like what's the possibility to learn in one life, especially if we're spiritually connected? So that's a lot. That's a lot of learning, and that's awesome. But did there is some people that maybe believe that you evolve. I'm not one of those people. I think we have full capability
yeah,
at all times.
yeah,
I don't feel like we're shifting to some different being.
yeah.
We're becoming more aware of possibilities,
Hmm.
like in the space of the future when we have AI and maybe we're on Mars and stuff like that. Then there's going to be certain parts of us that are more activated in those spaces, but that doesn't mean that we've ultimately changed very much.
Yeah,
Um,
no,
Not to say that we can't shift from lifetime to lifetime, but the core who we are isn't changing.
yeah. I agree with you, Kevin. I think we are whole. We just haven't discovered all of it.
Correct. Yeah,
And
that's what
so,
I think. That feels very light to me,
yeah,
and also so safe to believe in ourselves. So
yeah,
safe to see our divinity, to see our humanity, and to love both.
yes, absolutely. And speaking of humanity and divinity, holding those two together can sometimes be a challenge. I know that people that have had like spiritual experiences or afterlife experience, or even if you haven't had that, like in my life, just major pivot points, right? Which causes us to awaken and try to wrestle with who we are. So we start changing, but nothing around us changes. We're still in the same family, the same
Hmm.
job, the same friends, whatever. And how does someone then deal with that change when nothing around you is changing? Do you have any tips for that?
Well, so I think this is a part of all spiritual experiences. I mean, one thing, let's just call it at a high level, like there's a universe definition. Well, the last time the universe, like the universe definition changed, like let's say according to Eastern methodologies like human design, is was in like the 1600s, and that was a huge shift. It was more towards group, and more towards like I'm not an expert at this, but just generally, it was more towards think about the Industrial Revolution, the World Wars in the 1800s. We often think about the First World War as the First World War, but it's not. There was actually one in the beginning of the 1800s too. Um, so there's a lot of big things that happened from that group definition, and um, the next change is in 2027. So one thing that I've noticed with working with a lot of healers and people who are working in their spiritual gifts, like coaches, etc., is there's a shift happening from the old economy to the new, and it happened a long time ago, or it started to happen a long time ago, and it's continuing. And so sometimes we think when we grow that we just jump to our final product, and really that's not the way it works, right? Like it's a process. We become aware of what our potential is. We start to heal some of it, and then it takes time. And it takes letting go to change from one version of you to another version. Now, part of what you're doing in that process is the bottom chakras, like the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. They're very attached to your environment. They're really grounded. They're a grounding anchor chakras. Um, we as humans typically don't want to change our environment very quickly. We like to stay in the safety zone. So for me, I'm married to someone that's not as much connected there. So I'll give you a little story to explain. Um, Several years ago, I said to my wife, Jamie, who I'm in business with, my business partner, my life and business partner, um, I said, I'd love to live down south. It was like before COVID, I was working at home. She had an office job. And I was like, wouldn't it be nice if you work out with your dad where we could be down south some of the time? Because I can. So let's do that. And she was like, no, I really love Wisconsin. That's where we lived at the time. Well, in the beginning of 2024, we were talking about our business, and I won't go through the whole story, but it became clear to us that we were called to move to Mexico. Um, and so we did that in the next 6 months. We figured out how to do it in the next almost actually 5 months. So that's pretty rapid change, and our life changed in every way from that point forward. But what you didn't see is that, or what if the casual observer didn't see, is that it took years of growth before that to be able to do that and to let go like that. And those 5 months were pretty intense for me because I had the house I wanted, I had the life wanted, and I had everything I wanted. So it's kind of hard to let all that go, give it away, sell it, etc. When you like it. Um, but what I learned in that experience is that if we're really going to change, a lot of times it's letting go of the things. The process of letting go of the things that are actually our environment
Mhm.
will actually change us. And
Mhm.
we think about that last a lot of times. We're like, well, I like my house. I like my city. I like that. Well, if you want real change, one thing you could think about is what is the latitude and longitude of, or latitude at least. I think latitude's vertical. Can't remember exactly. But there's like a energetic space for you, for each of us. Well, my
Mhm.
wife's happens to be down here, and she's been able to really be supported. Like she's been there for us and my 6 boys. We have 6 boys, for all of our lives, and this is like us giving her space to give her body the support it needs. And so, even though she didn't want to move down south, no, she loves it. Um, so yeah, I think we notice the limits that we're putting on ourselves and the stories we tell ourselves of like, oh, I can't move because I got this person that really helps me or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, those are all things that are keeping us connected to where we are.
Mhm.
Our family, our family connections, even. If there's, you know, one of the things I do with people all the time now is that I just have this little prayer meditation where I walk them through a simple conversation like with our family. Um, Mom and Dad, I love you very much. And I honor you by letting go
Mhm.
of and putting at your feet your struggles. And I choose my calling. And be, and I do that partially because I'm honoring you because you want me to go further. And
Mhm.
that shifts and that lets us to let go because a lot of times our parents are and our ancestors even are wanting us to be in a safe space where we've always been and where they know that it'll work for us but meanwhile the world's changing. So I think there's a lot of work for all of us on the root chakras and the connecting those bottom chakras
Mhm.
to let go and to go through that whatever the process is that allows us to um, release our doubts and fears about ourselves. And part of it is change.
Mhm.
That's the if I take if I take my experience of receiving healing, receiving coaching, and I have no change, I'm still not where I am. And that's what I'm learning.
Yeah, and that's pretty deep. I could tell you, like, I'm listening to you, Kevin. I'm a parent of this one boy who's a senior who wants to leave. Leave. We're in North Carolina. He wants to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And, thank you for sharing what you shared because, yeah, sometimes the roots can stop us from flying, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so
We
that's
want to
good.
connect. That's one thing the Mayan culture and the Mexican culture really does well is they really honor their ancestors.
Hmm.
And I think that, but they also get stuck too, like all of us would, in those paths that we
Yeah.
think. And if you're building something that's your entire family and you're giving space to everyone and in their gifts, that can be very supportive. Technically, we're all doing that. Like, but I'm saying from a business standpoint. But a lot of times, we're also limiting each other by saying, "Well, this is what worked for me." So, I mean, the future is very uncertain. Probably more uncertain than most people would ever be able to say in the past. And I feel like people need to be free to fly in the way that is their journey and to find the people that are for their journey,
Yes,
etc.
you said something very important, Kevin, about honoring ancestors. And yes, we want to be in that role of honoring and supporting, but then we also carry their fears too. That
Yeah,
gets handed down as well.
correct. Yeah, so that's why we want to have that conversation I went through because it's like the energy of thanking them and loving them and then putting it at their feet makes
Hmm.
it so we're not resisting them. If we resist who they are or how they've affected us, even their fears and doubts, it's we're not as grounded ourselves. When we shift that to being like we honor you and we love you and we recognize how you want the best for us, then we keep a very grounded connection to who we are and what we're called to be
Hmm.
and to them, a healthy connection to them. That that eighth chakra in most chakra systems is like a seven chakra body system. Your eighth chakra is in the ground and it's actually your ancestors.
Hmm.
So they are grounding us and they are, I just, sorry, I just got
That's okay.
that. But it feels right. I mean, it makes sense that
Yeah.
we're connected to them. And that's a chakra. It's processing things. They're helping us process things.
And so would you say then that because I've heard someone else that had a near-death experience and another friend of mine that actually she practices something called ancestral healing. So
Hmm.
would you say that then that us fulfilling our calling is in some sense healing our ancestors? Like,
Yeah, because on the journey of going into our calling, we get to set them free from some of the parts of them that they didn't that they want to be free of. And also, it's not I think I recognize in my parents, for example, that some of their journeys, some of the things that they wanted to accomplish in life, I'm accomplishing. I think it's almost like their vision lived on. Maybe their prayers, maybe what they did, their desires lived on. And
yeah,
so I wonder how often, I of course don't know, but I'm wondering how often that happens where they've almost like dreamt up what, and if you think about us choosing our parents, um, it's a pretty spiritual thing. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a
All
lot there.
those soul contracts, yes,
Yes. Yeah.
absolutely. Um, Kevin, the question I have, what you're talking about, right? Like the spiritual gifts, the tapping into our sacred, the alignment, and you're bringing all this into a world of business because you're coaching business
Yeah.
executives. How are you marrying the two? Because when I think of business, I think like cutthroat competition, all those things, all those words come to my mind for sure.
Yeah. Would you say that you think about business as a very masculine thing?
To be honest, yes.
Yeah. Well, and that's the way it has been in the past. It's been very masculine energy. And so what we're recognizing is that the future is not it's not so much that way. And I don't know that the past needed to be that much that way. It would
Yeah,
be better to have a little bit of balance, right?
yeah,
And likely there's more balance than maybe sometimes we see. Um, there's the future, it will be required to have more balance though,
hmm,
because of the spirituality side. So if you notice like billionaires that already have a brand and they are being on social and they're self branding. That's one activity that's like that feminine side of business, that connected business
mm,
part of business. Young people today are more spiritual than their parents, in by
mhm,
and large, and they don't connect to, oh, I've got this product that will work for you. They don't. Just because you say that it works doesn't mean that they pick that product. Um, they're interested in then the connection, like the what you're calling is, why are you doing this? Why'd you create this product? They want the story, and that's a it's a more balanced approach to business where you have both the feminine and masculine. You still need to have structure in your business. You need to have some masculine parts, um, and at the same time, we're seeing a shift in the economy. Both economies still exist, so
Yeah.
just someday it might be a little more balanced overall.
Yes, that's I always wonder, right? What is that tipping point? Like, who is that one person that needs to be touched? And then it kind of tips.
Yeah. Well, I think it's happening at such a large level, right? You see so many people like you doing what you're doing. Like, uh, there's been people that have built this for decades, to give us the information that we need and can use today.
Yes.
And yeah, I see a future that's um, much more dynamic
Yeah.
by
That,
necessity.
And thank you for the reminder, Kevin. We are standing on what others have built, and we're trying to do our best to take this forward, right?
Yeah.
So I do want to talk a little bit about your work. You're a
Mm-hmm.
coach with Believe Crew.
Mm-hmm.
So, who who are you coaching, and what is that about?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. Like, if you have a traditional business where you have a product, I can't help you. Like, I mean, I can, but I don't know the traditional business stuff. Like my wife does. She's a business strategist and she gets that stuff. But what we help people with is that journey. Like we're usually working with people where there's a transition in their life. Um, say they're say maybe they've had a divorce, or or better, they've just purchased a new business, or something shifted, and we're helping them with, we're working alongside them as a team with their process.
Mhm,
Um, so we're recognizing the transition. The transition might be them recognizing their calling. A lot of business people do the business and are in the business without thinking about why and what they're personally called to.
mhm,
So if they become aware of that and want to learn more about themselves, we help them with that, and we do that as a team approach. Um, you'll find like what I'm saying right now connects to my own journey where I've had a lot of people help me, and so we like to overwhelm them with love and kindness. Where put a couple people, like a coach and a healer, in a call with them. Um, my wife and I do calls where we use our spiritual gifts together, and we try to do this with other combinations as well, where she gets visions, I interpret them, find the beliefs, and whatever needs to be released, and release it for the people. So, yeah. So we're really in the business of using spiritual gifts, focusing on spiritual gifts as part of, we have business backgrounds. We can do some of those more traditional functions, but we're working with people that recognize that it's not enough to only function in that way.
mhm. That's very beautiful. And then the question I have on that is, what is a common, like with all the people that you're coaching, what do you think is the common factor as far as a limiting belief that you come across?
Oh, oh, I think even those of us that have done a lot of work, we can probably revisit I am love, um, in the positive, and is there any negatives there? Um, I'm I we sometimes have beliefs around I'm bad.
Yeah.
I'm I'm wrong. There's nothing. I'm worthless. Um, really heavy stuff there. Also, connecting ourselves to resources. We can get in a place where we're not grounded, like we're outside the universe. We're not. We don't believe that the world is a safe place.
Mhm,
That we don't believe that humanity is supportive of each other.
mhm,
Um, So we're really disconnected in that way from everything that's possible because
mhm,
we're just basically alone, and
mhm,
that is a sad place to be in.
mhm,
Um, and so those are a good place to start, to just come back to earth, recognize yes, there's bad things happening here, but we're hearing about them and being inundated with them all the time. And yet there's something so much more beautiful happening where we are, like we've already talked about today, we are connecting to and aware of those that are in the heavens and that are even thinking about that whole circle of guides that we've got, and then that circle behind them and the circle behind them. There's so much, and then billions of people, and how many beings are involved in this, right? And so feeling like we're very supported, we're very grounded in the universe, that this is a beautiful place to do work. It's perfect. It's a perfect place for us to work. Do we do we hurt the earth? Yes, but can we fix it? Yes. And so all of that kind of stuff, more positive outlook of what's possible, especially if you think about even 1 billion people joining a cause and how much that would change. Like we have a lot of possibility.
We do. And thank you for sharing that. It's very powerful, Kevin, if we can somehow feel the support that we have, like what you were talking about, the guides and then another circle and another one. And then to think about how many people are invested in our little lifetime, right?
Exactly.
How many are rooting
All
for us? Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful things I've learned in this whole journey is so when I release an emotion, what happens? Like say there's a trapped emotion in my organ somewhere and I release it. Where does that go? Well, my view of what I've been exposed is like there's an angel that's called like a certain power. It's called a power angel. They come down and they take that and they bring it to the light and
Mm,
it burns up and that fuels the light and it goes back and around.
yeah.
So you might feel like if I've got a heavy emotion that that's going to pollute the earth or something like that. Like I know some people the teaching scripture teaching is like cast it into the bottom of the sea. I don't know what the purpose of that is, but to me, no, we have heavy emotions that are here. For example, from an emotion standpoint, they're here to speak to us. We
Mm,
feel that for a reason, and they're alive, and then we can let them go, and it's going back to positive, love-based energy, and it's cycling. So we're part of this huge system of energy, and recognizing that it's like the more spiritual work you do, the more you recognize that the entirety of the heavens is consumed, or at least the entirety I've been ever aware of, is consumed with helping us. Well, maybe there's a whole nother galaxy out there somewhere, and there's a whole nother group of people
yeah.
focused with them. I don't know, but there's a lot of intensity of wow, there's some valuable work happening on Earth.
Yes, Kevin, I absolutely heartfelt agree. Oh, that resonates with me very deeply because I've always believed that this one little life, we may not look at our lives that way, but they do. It's very important that we're here and that we're finish it, just finish as best as we can.
Yeah,
So,
sorry, before you go to the next thing, I remember one session that I had with my sister who started this business with us originally, and she went on to do
yeah.
a different job, but um, where our mom showed up, who had passed, showed up in the session and was like, "Hey, can I get the what you guys are working on?" So that was a pretty special one where it was me and her, my sister, and then my mom, and I think that they're a lot and they're watching and they're aware. Spirituality is more awareness. It's not less awareness, and so it's more connection, right? It's less, not less connection. So the more spiritual we are, more aware we are, and it's unfathomable how huge it all is happening. What's happening for us?
Yeah, it truly is, Kevin. Thank you so much for sharing that. Before you were sharing that, where I was going to go is just ask you if there was any other things that we have not talked about that's on your heart that you would love to share. Please feel free to do so.
I'd love to just tell people, um, uh, man, I think I maybe should put spiritual gifts on my website and give it to you as a link. But to think about having uh, a list of spiritual gifts and finding yours. And
Mm,
so I don't know if anyone, maybe people are aware on your podcast of some type of sway testing or some type of checking with your intuition. Yes, no. Some people see light and dark. Some people, there's just so many intuitive responses. But getting to that place where you can find what your intuitive response is, yes and no. We need a very clear yes, a very clear no, and then asking, like, what are my spiritual gifts on a chart?
Mm,
Maybe you've got a chart that's like my chart is like 3 columns with different types of gifts, um, and then it's variable number of lines. And so I just ask, we can just create a matrix of that and say, okay, is my first is the primary spiritual gift I want to be aware of in column 1, 2, or 3,
mm,
and is my primary spiritual gift. And if you want someone else to do it for you, you can do that too. Um, it's just very powerful to know. It's not gonna be like, oh wow, I never thought of that. But it's gonna help you understand who you are. You're gonna be like, oh wow, no wonder I've always thought that way, or no wonder everyone thought that people have the gift of languages. Let's say my son has that. It was like, well, duh. We've seen how clearly you can explain everything forever, and he learns new languages easily. You
yeah,
know, it's more of like a celebration of how special you are. So, um, yeah, I'd like to offer that to people and just do it in your own way. We don't need a format, but
yeah,
find it out. And even if you just need to download it, if you have that kind of belief, or you can just be like, boom, I'll receive it right now. Do that.
yeah, yeah. This is so important for us to recognize our spiritual gifts. We all have it. We were saying earlier, right? We are whole. We are just discovering parts of us. And
Yeah.
some of us exercise some things more than others. So that's all,
Yeah.
really. So,
Yeah, actually, to add for your podcast, some people after they have an afterlife or like some type of near-death experience, their definition completely changes, and it's almost like they're reborn,
mhm.
and their gifts can change too. So just putting that out there, you even in the normal life, our gifts can change. If you have a big transition, check again,
Mm,
because you probably have new gifts for a new life if that's what happened to you.
that is profound. I had never thought about that. Really, we do go through so many changes, even in this one
Yes.
lifetime.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I say, near death, those are drastic. But even without that, right, life is forever changing, constant flowing.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
thank you for mentioning that. It's not like one and done, right? Gifts can change. That's a beautiful thought, Kevin. I'm
Yeah.
certainly
Absolutely.
going to make a note of it.
And technically, if you want a gift, I think you have the capability of any of them.
Hmm.
So if we need it, ask for it. And part of the reason you don't have all of them so strong is because we need each other. That's
Yes.
the beauty of it. And so it's way more fun than just saying, "Oh, you are powerful and you could have all of them," but it's way more fun to find people that have the gifts that we need
Yeah.
and put them together as a
Yep.
community.
Yep. I think all of us make up the whole, right? The collective. So definitely. Well, there is so many interesting things I could get out of you, Kevin. Our time is almost coming to a close. So I just wanted to ask you where people can find you and if you have any other closing thoughts.
Certainly. Yeah, so you can find us. Our website is believecrew.com. Um, I will warn you, it's outdated. It looks like we still have in Wisconsin. We're not one of those. We go through so many business transitions that we have gotten sick of changing the website. So we'll catch up someday. Um, but you get a feeling of who we are, and you see the older version of us on our website. And then also we're pretty active on LinkedIn, up to date stuff on LinkedIn.com, and then search for Belief Crew LLC.
And if they wanted to contact you, would a LinkedIn message or go to your website, or do you have another contact you'd like to share?
The website's probably the most powerful way
Okay.
because I
All
know
right.
we get connect like notices when those come through, and LinkedIn will work too. It's just that we're not every day checking those messages.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Kevin. This has been wonderful learning for me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me in.
Yeah.
Just it's been a great discussion.